Q.
That's it.
Yes. Woohoo.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you today, first of all. And it's so great, I think, that you're a center for spiritual living. There's just not enough concentration on this conversation, on this space of talking about such things as the soul and spirit. And it's such a consciousness that you have to be able to do this. I really admire you for this. Where to start? Well, first of all, I got to tell you, I have a breakfast club here. This is my set for my breakfast club most of the week. In fact, all the rest of the week, it's my living room. However, on Saturdays, I host a breakfast club. People from all over the world, for some reason, end up here for breakfast, and I feed them, and then we have a little show afterwards. It's broadcast all over the world. I guess that's where I first got introduced to Anne Fernandez, is through that somehow on the magic of internet. Oh, I see. Oh, I just see that you have a nice congregation there. How nice. Well, just to start, uh, I just want to give a couple definitions of relativity. One is from a friend of mine, Dr. or Mr. William Sears, and he said his best example of relativity is this. If you see a gentleman walking down the street with three strands of hair on his head, you would say, oh, that guy doesn't have very much hair. However, if you saw those three strands of hair in your soup, you'd say, there's sure a heck of a lot of hair in my soup. That's mine. Oh, good. I can hear your laughter. Usually, yeah, I don't know if I have to pause for it or not. And another great example of definition was by Groucho Marx. He was defining the difference between comedy and tragedy. He says, tragedy is if I get a paper cut. Comedy is if you fall in a manhole. So that is all relative as well. All right, I've got to have one. I got to get this one more joke out. I met a guy yesterday. He was so Irish. His blood type was O apostrophe. All right, on with the show. My real purpose here is just to talk about the Baha'i faith and its prophet founder Baha'u'llah. And really, once you hear the word Baha'i and Baha'u'llah, it's really up to you to investigate. We're not here to convince you or anything. We're just here to share information. It's up to you to do what you want, because we believe everybody has their own spiritual journey, have to investigate things with their own mind and feel things with their own heart. So let's get started. All right, now I've got a little flip chart here, and I'm going to adjust my camera so you can see it. You don't need to see me. So it starts out, the Baha'i Faith started out on May, what did I say? In May of 1844. There we go. In May 23rd, 1844, when the forerunner of the Baha'i Faith, the Bab, which means the gate, in Shiraz, in what was then Iran, modern day Persia, proclaimed that he was there to help people realize that the coming of the Prophet Baha'u'llah was coming. The gate was very instrumental in his short period of dispensation. He was like John the Baptist in the Christian faith that prepared people for the coming of Christ. The Bab, a prophet himself, prepared people for the coming of Baha'u'llah. His dispensation was only 19 years, and he was martyred in 9 years after he declared. So it started out with the Bab. Now, the purpose of the Baha'i faith is to unite mankind. It is to unite all the people of the world. That's its primary purpose. Now, for that to happen, in 1844, there wasn't much means, but however, on May 23rd, 1844 is when he declared. The very next day, on May 24th, 1844, the Morse code tapped out its first message ever. It was done at a joint session of Congress. The House of Representatives and the Senate were in the chambers, and Samuel Morse was in the chambers. And between there and a railroad station in Baltimore, this message was tapped out, and it was the first entry into the age of communication that made us a small global village. And you know what that message was? It was tapped out. It was, what hath God wrought? So at the very moment that the age of unity of the entire world came in, there was the means for it to happen. In fact, that on these computers and laptops and phones we all have now, we're able to communicate everywhere in the world, just right now. So that happened. And this was actually the message that was tapped out is prophesized in the Bible. It says, when metal hits metal and messages flash across the sky, then will the Spirit of the Lord appear. So a little bit of background about me. This happens to be Buzz Lightyear. The reason I put this up here, because on August 25th, 1969, the very evening before I started the University of North Dakota as a freshman, the University of North Dakota had a party for all the incoming freshmen. And at this party, there was about 2,500, 3,000 people there, and they were giving away free hot dogs and hamburgers and chips and soda. It was, for me as a farm boy who had just gotten off the farm, it was a big deal. And walking around meeting everybody, a lot of people came up to me and said, "Oh, Buzz, good to see you again." I said, "Buzz?" Well, anyway, they had met some guy named Buzz who looked like me, evidently enough that they thought I was him. So later on in that dinner party, I looked at this guy and I walked up to him. I said, "Is your name Buzz?" And he said, "Yeah." "Is your name Lee?" So people had been walking up to him as well. So we just had a brief conversation, found out we were both living in the same dormitory. I said, "I'm on the second floor." He says, "I'm on the third floor." And then he added, for some reason, "There's a guy across the hall from me that has this weird religion." "Oh, what is it?" And he said, "I don't remember." I said, "What room is he in?" He said, 321. I left the party. I was curious for some reason. I wanted to know what this weird religion was. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, and there was Methodists and Lutherans, and that was about it. So I wanted to find out about this weird religion. So I went up to room 321, knocked on the door. Gentleman answered. I said, "I hear you have a weird religion." And he said, "Well, I don't know how weird it is." So anyway, he gave me a talk. He just let me know about it for an hour and a half. And it made an impression on me. And for the next 14 months, I investigated it. During that 14 months, I was going to be a minister originally in the Methodist Church, but I had decided by that time that why are there 1,300, 1,500 denominations of Christianity? There was only one Christ. So what's all the division about? So I had already conceptualized that it should be the Christian church or something to that effect. I was not going to be a Methodist minister. I was going to be a Christian minister. Wherever that would got me, I don't know. However, during that time, I was still associated with the Methodists, and because of my activity as a youth in that religion, I was asked to be the substitute preacher at the various churches in Minnesota when the regular minister went on vacation. So I had the opportunity to give sermons and lead the congregation for that year, from the time I learned about Baha'i until I finally declared. And that was in November 12th, 1970. So I've been a Baha'i now for a few years. In fact, 53 years, 10 months, 23 days, but who's counting? So, all right. And what, like I said before, one of the main things we believe is the independent investigation of truth. It's up to us to investigate on ourselves. We can't know through somebody else's mind. We can't feel through somebody else's heart. We have to investigate truth ourselves. one of the things we believe in is the spiritual solution to the economic problems. We're not looking for political solutions for the economic problems because in the world of politics and various other aspects of our society, too much of it is based upon greed. And greed is a spiritual illness, if you will. And so we look at the spiritual solution to the economic problems of today. Another thing we believe in is a universal compulsory, universal auxiliary language. We believe that everyone who is born in whatever culture or ethnic background, they learn the language, of course, like that. But we also believe that we all should learn a universal auxiliary language, yet to be determined, however. It will be voted on at some point, and who knows what it will be. There's already universal languages in international flight. If you're flying from a country to another country, that universal language is English. There's been attempts to it in the past. Esperanto is one of them. They tried to make that a universal language, and I don't know if they will make it or not. It hasn't been decided yet, but it will at some point in time in the near future. And can you imagine how much easier it will be if you can go to any person in the world, no matter where they're from, and be able to communicate with them in the same language? It would really help bring about one of those main tenets of the Baha'i faith, and that is the unity of mankind. Another thing is universal compulsory education. This is so important. Can you imagine how it can transform society, just education alone? I'm going to give you an example. Here in Hawaii, the missionaries came here in 1820. And Hawaii didn't have a written language at that time. They were just audible. And so they put together a language. Hawaiian alphabet only has 13 letters in it. And so, however, the king of the nation of Hawaii mandated that everyone learn the language, the written language. And in 20 years, the entire nation, the entire kingdom of Hawaii was literate. They had the second most highest literacy in the world in a mere 20 years. So education, it can be so important in the transformation of society. So we can go from the society we have now, which there's a lot of turmoil in this world. But with education, you can change that in just a matter of a generation or two. Yeah, in fact, Hawaii's literacy was over 90%. The only nation in the world at the time with a higher literacy was Scotland. In fact, in 1840, when they were over 90%, the literacy in the United States was at 65%. So just imagine how we could transform the world with a compulsory education. All right, what else we got here? Here's the one that's really near and dear to my heart, and that is the harmony of science and religion. We believe that science, not backed by spiritual or religious feelings, can turn something like atomic energy into something that's devastating, or we can use it to light the world. We can use a paring knife, for example, to cut somebody, to stab somebody, or we can use it to pare a fruit to eat. So science needs to be backed by spiritual principle. On the other hand, if you have religion that's not backed by science, you have superstition. For example, everybody believed that the earth was the center of the universe and everything gathered around it. Now, Muhammad, for example, in the 600s, said, no, the sun's the center of the solar system. He was considered a heretic for saying that. It wasn't until years later, decades later, centuries later, that Galileo invented the telescope. I think it was Galileo. I'm sure it was. And that's when they discovered, in fact, the science discovered that the sun was the center of our solar system, just like Muhammad had said. So a lot of the things that are said by prophets of God are in fact reality, but at the time they say it, because they're all-knowing and all-wise, the science hasn't caught up with it. However, if religion can't be verified by science. It's merely superstition. Now I tell people I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. All right. So you're with me still? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. Oneness of all religions. This is one of the main principles of the Baha'i faith. We believe there's one God. I don't know if it's backwards or not, but behind me I have this thing that says one light, many lamps. We don't care what religion you come from. They all comes from one God. There is only one God. There's one creator, and then there's creation. And they kind of go along hand in hand. So it doesn't matter if you're, to us, it doesn't matter if you're Christian or Jewish or Islamic or Hindu or Buddhist or Zoroastrian. We're all one and the same as far as we're concerned if we believe in God. Even we don't care if you're atheist, quite honestly. It's probably harder and you have to have more faith to be an atheist than it is to be a follower of any religion. So the oneness of religion is a very important thing in our estimation. We also, like many people, believe in universal peace. In fact, we believe in so much that we are conscientious objectors if it comes to a war. We are not allowed because of our faith to carry weapons against our fellow man. We do obey the laws of the government in which we live, but if we get into the army or whatever, we take on clerical positions and such. We don't bear arms against other people. Okay, this one's huge in my opinion as well. The equality of men and women. We believe in the equality of men and women, and it's put to us like this. Humanity is like a bird. Men and women are the wings. Unless those two wings are of equal strength, the bird of humanity isn't going to fly correctly. So, and this is something that, as far as we know, as far as I know, it's the first time in religious texts that it stated such that the men and women are equal. Also, the oneness of mankind. Okay. How are we going to get the oneness of mankind? How do we get to the point where we understand that everyone are brothers and sisters on this planet Earth? Well, we believe that we have to eliminate all forms of prejudice. We don't care if it's racial prejudice, national prejudice, religious prejudice, social economic prejudice. We've got to eliminate prejudices. And did you know that the two most remote people on the face of this planet are 51st cousins? We're all related. We're all related. We all go back to the same original parents. And if you follow the demographics and the population of the world through different times throughout history, you'll realize you can't get, you're related to yourself. Now, for example, you have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great grandparents, 16 great, 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 et cetera, et cetera. If you go to, what is it? Yeah, if you go back 30 generations, you'll have over 1 billion great, 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 30 great grandparents. Well, there wasn't 1 billion people on the planet 600 years ago, which is the number of generations it takes to get 30 plus great, 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 great grandparents. All right. There was only 400,000 people on the face of the earth, but you have a billion ancestors. Well, you have to be related to yourself. You can't get away from it. It wasn't until 1804 that there was 1 billion people on this planet. And your 30th great grandparents would have been somewhere around 1423, 400 years before that. So when you say, oh, whatever. And when people do these DNA tests and all, they discover lots of interesting things. I believe if you're born in North America, your chances of just about 100% of the time, you will be related to everybody at least 15th cousin or less. We did that when my oldest son got married. We looked at his family tree and his wife's family tree. They were 9th and 13th cousins on 2 different branches of their families. So it's amazing. Yeah, if you get into the genealogy and such, you'll find that we're all related. Yeah, and as I said, the two most remote relatives on the face of the earth are 51st cousins. All right. So this is really all I've got to say. Baha'i and Baha'u'llah. One of the things about, we have scripture, just like Christians have the Bible, the Torah for the Jews, the Quran for Muslims. All of these have scripture. We have scripture as well. Baha'u'llah, before him, the Bab, everything they wrote. And there's hundreds of volumes of books that they wrote. They would write a book. They would subscribe. They would have their amanuensis or secretary, and they would subscribe a book in a day. It's amazing the amount of how prolific they were, because they were just manifesting, and it was at a time that they could be recorded. Let's see where we are here. There's only one other thing. If you want to know more, again, I'm not here to convince you, but if you want to investigate it, find out more of yourself, we have a wonderful website, Baha'i.org. And the whole idea is just to, actually, our main mission right now, worldwide. Oh, I should mention this. Okay. How am I doing time-wise? I forgot what time I started. I got a clock here. Am I okay? About 2 more minutes?
Yes.
All right, thank you. One of the things that Baha'u'llah did was he established a means of there being no divisions after his death. Every religion in the world has schisms, has sects, after the prophet has passed away, almost immediately. Well, what he did is he appointed his eldest son the center of the covenant. And so if there was any discussion about disagreements, he would be the final say. So there is no second organization of Baha'is or third organization of Baha'is, or the Baha'is of the West Coast or Baha'is of the East Coast. There's Baha'is worldwide. Shoghi Abdul Baha was the son of Baha'u'llah, and he was the center of the covenant. When he passed away, in his will and testament, he left his oldest grandson, whose name is Shoghi Effendi, as the guardian of the faith. And he was the one who had the final say in the event that there was any time in their history that they thought they were going to have a schism or split off or something. He put an end to that. Upon his passing, by the covenant, the Universal House of Justice, which is located in our Holy Land in Israel, in the Holy Land, was formed. And so now today we have a means of squelching any type of disagreement that would make us a schism. And it's a beautiful thing. And right now we have a worldwide program. It's a 9-year plan. And we're in locations, over 100,000 locations around the world. We're the most diverse religion, I believe there is right now. And we're gaining popularity in some states in the United States. We're the second largest religion, for example, in South Carolina, which just blows my mind. We have houses of worship all over the world. You can explore them. So anyway, our purpose right now, our goal in the 9-year plan is to raise the consciousness like you're doing with the spiritual living, having a consciousness about spiritual living. So we're trying to raise the conversation worldwide, help bring about communities so that they can get along better, and just help transfer the world to make it a better place so we can be one planet, one people, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. If you want to ask questions, and if there's time, I'd be glad to answer it.
So